Jordan Chariton, our political reporter, spoke with the president of the NAACP about Charleston and about what happened a year ago, and so we want to show you some of that now.
I got a call from one of our citizens, very active in politics, and his message was, Madam President, you need to come down to Mother Emanuel. We just had a killing of 9 people. And when I got there and met my girlfriend, and it was just unreal. It was. You can't imagine, because most of the family members who had gathered didn't really know who actually had died. My first vice president, Reverend Dore, he called and he said, because he was really close to Senator Pinckney, he said, Dot, I think Clemente may have been one of the victims, because everybody I know has been calling him. And now the prayer service, their prayer meeting would have been over by now, and he's not answering. And as the word came out, every time there was a message coming out and as to who they thought were, it was one thing, but when they made it official and the mayor got there and they started naming those folks who were deceased, it was, I don't think I'd ever experience anything like that again, ever.
Wow.
So
I mean, it's been a year, but obviously still incredibly affected by that experience, remembers every minute. That's difficult to imagine.
it's really bringing back one of the more horrific things I've seen at crime scenes, is when you're at a crime scene and there's dead bodies and that cell phone is ringing and you're a cop and you can't move. So you're just standing there doing your business, and you know that everyone that loves these people who have been gunned down by these same laws we're failing to put in, and their phones are ringing, and each ring just reaches and grips you, that you have to deal with for forever because of this same inaction that we just talked about, ending the lives of loved ones that are sitting in a church, for crying out loud.
And you know, there's been a lot. People love to use situations like this to talk about how great our culture is, right? About the shooting in Orlando, for instance, right? They talk about Rudy Giuliani. We talked about it, how he'd call all those the barbarian culture. And it's like, you know, your first responsibility is to look at yourself in the mirror. And it's our culture which is so corrupt, which is morally bankrupt in a sense, because we're not going to stop these. We had 20 kindergartners slaughtered. We did nothing. Why? Because of the moral bankruptness of our culture. That money has completely corrupted our legislation and our legislators. We've done stories about how it's not responsive to people, it's not responsive to voters. It's completely corrupt. So when you talk about societies being better than others, we should really try to work on fixing our morally bankrupt system of passing laws and trying to protect our own citizens, which we're not doing. That's what he said. We're not protecting our own citizens. What kind of moral bankruptcy is that?
And look, so I reread accounts of what happened on June 17th of last year. And when you read about him sitting down, choosing to sit down next to one particular person so that they can pray together, they're reading the book, he starts arguing with them, that he wants to be with those people for a while before shooting him. He does it on the 193rd anniversary of when the leadership of that church was hung for supposedly planning a rebellion that I have seen no evidence for, and the church was burned down. Like this is just a little kid, and he wants to start a race war with these people that he doesn't know or understand, even after being with them for an hour there. And for some reason, that does not overwhelm the discourse the way the guy in Pulse, who had no connection, which we're going to see, to ISIS, who simply said he likes them, effectively. That's what he did. He pledged allegiance to them. That means he watched a fucking propaganda video on YouTube, and now he likes them. Well, what videos was the guy in Charleston watching? Why did he believe at less than 20 years of age that we desperately need a race war because black people are sleeping with our women, he says, and his women, and we need to get rid of them. But that conversation doesn't go anywhere beyond just him, because he doesn't stand in for all of his culture. What we have is, we have a very small percentage, an incredibly minute percentage of broken men in our country who are filled with anger and with rage, and who want their insecurity and rage to mean something more. And depending on how you were born and what culture you were brought up in, maybe you think it has something to do with fucking Norse gods, and a lot of white supremacists now have latched onto that. Or maybe you think it has something to do with white supremacy, and so you latch onto that, and maybe you watch an ISIS video and you say, oh, I identify with that. Whatever it is that allows you to think that when I go and kill a bunch of people because of how unhappy and how angry I am, it's going to mean something more than me being a fucking mass murderer. But we think that some of those mean more than others. And this is a problem that we've had for decades. There's been mass shootings throughout American history, obviously, but especially in the past few decades, the attempt to link what you're doing to some other political movement, it's not unique to America, but it is a big issue that we have to deal with, and we can't allow ourselves to be distracted by one religion and assume that it has more to do with that than with American culture that has bred so many of these monsters. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. This happened. These murders are able to happen because of what's wrong with our culture. That's why they're able to happen. That guy was able to get an AR-15. He was able to get body. He almost got the body armor.
Try to get the Type 3 body armor.
You know what I'm talking? They're all able to get guns. Nobody's on terror. That's because of what's wrong with our culture. And so, when you try to put your focus on somebody else's culture, it's cowardice.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, before we go to break, let's just roll the second part of Jordan's interview with the head of the Charleston NAACP.
It wasn't just that young boy. It's this. I have to, if I go no farther than the state of South Carolina, that we are still living and behaving in a way that a 19-year-old kid would be able to carry out something like that without people that he doesn't really know. Who would want to have a race war? Why? What are we teaching our children? And part of the discussion I have often with the school district, as long as we continue to separate the children and have them to believe that I'm superior, folks are not going anywhere. Minorities, there's no Africa for us to go back to. There's none. And when adults continue to perpetuate that, this is the mindset you get from folks who are not well educated and for whatever reason they could have other issues going on, but to exact this kind of pain and suffering on I say a nation. I mean, this is not just a Charleston thing. This is and I think that's why we've got all this attention, because the world looked at this and said, this is a young person that went into a church and decided, I'm just going to kill all of them.
Yeah. Anyway, look, I think that there's a lot of value in spotlighting particularly horrendous shootings of this sort to acknowledge the continued suffering of the victims, to remind us of the huge distance that we still have to travel as a country and as a culture to fix the massive gaping wounds that we have. Obviously, that day of Charleston, there were dozens of other shootings in America. There were 42 other shootings the day of the Pulse nightclub shooting.